Fantastic. Well, so there we go. Which door is it, everyone? Perfect, great, we'll have no issues. Fantastic, so yeah, as mentioned just now, I had I would say the pleasure, I would also say the surreal experience of being featured in an hour-long documentary focusing primarily on the work of Christians Against Poverty. The charity that I work for, I do a lot of that from my local church in Bradford. I'm a debt centre manager there, so I visit people in their homes and help them out of debt. But I also run a job club helping people find work. And that documentary was not really supposed to feature much of me at all, but actually once they heard a bit about my story, the producers became quite captivated by that, and actually a lot of people said to me that one of the most powerful parts of that documentary is a bit which I'm going to be doing for you guys here today, so no pressure. So I just thought I'd start on the topic of forgiveness by just bringing it back to the Bible, which is always a good thing to do. I have my notes in here, which is fine, they're on my phone. And I just want to read a quick parable. So if anyone knows this man called Jesus, he had quite a habit of telling stories to get his points across, and one of those was a story about an unforgiving, it's called different things in different translations, an unforgiving debtor, an unforgiving servant, and I just want to read you that. So it's from Matthew 18, 21 to 35. If you have your Bibles, you can turn them on, or if you're old school, you can open them up. We can have a look at that together. Like I said, different translations will have different words. I'm using the New Living Translation. It's like the Message, but I think it's a little bit more uptown than the Message. People say Message is for Yorkshire people. I don't agree with that. I think that's unfair. So Matthew 18, 21 to 35. So it starts with Peter. So Peter came to him and asked, "Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? No, not 7 times, Jesus replied, but 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven can be compared to a king who decided to bring his accounts up to date with servants who had borrowed money from him. In the process, one of his debtors was brought in who owed him millions of dollars. He couldn't pay, so his master ordered that he be sold, along with his wife, his children, and everything he owned, to pay the debt. But the man fell down before his master and begged him, 'Please be patient with me, and I will pay it all.' Then his master was filled with pity for him, and he released him and forgave his debt. So this guy's just forgiven millions of pounds worth of debt for one of his servants. But when the man left the king, he went to a fellow servant who owed him a few $1,000s. He grabbed him by the throat and demanded instant payment. His fellow servant fell down before him and begged for a little more time. 'Be patient with me and I will pay,' he pleaded. But his creditor wouldn't wait. He had the man arrested and put in prison until the debt could be paid in full. When some of the other servants saw this, they were very upset. They went to the king and told him everything that had happened. Then the king called in the man he had forgiven and said, 'You evil servant, I forgave you that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you?' Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he had paid his entire debt. That's what my heavenly Father will do to you if you refuse to forgive your brothers and sisters from your heart." So, yeah, forgiveness is quite a tricky topic. It's one of those things that, depending on each person's experience of things in their life, their tolerance of forgiveness and their ability to forgive can change drastically. And I want to speak to you today not from a place of being an all-knowing authority on forgiveness, but I do have a story of forgiveness in my life. I'm just going to share that with you today so you can understand where I'm coming from. Maybe there'll be some elements of this which may resonate with you, and you may see that forgiveness is doable, it is possible, and it can really transform your life if you can get to grips with it. So I got a slide here, fighting for my faith. If some of you know, I do a bit of pro wrestling on weekends. It's a bit of a fun thing for me to do. It's a nice little hobby. And I've kind of been doing this talk at wrestling shows across the country, getting people in to kind of come to wrestling, but then I then to share my story with them and just give them a piece of that. So we start with 3 Fs. So my formation, which is the next slide, as a kid. I'm just going to give you some background on me. So I grew up in a place called Keighley, not that far away from here. It's a nice little town. I say nice It's actually one of those little towns that if you lived there, you'd be good to get away from it. And if you didn't live there, you would never go through it. Or you would only go through it, you would never stop. Keighley is an amazing place for so many reasons. And one of those is that it is quite deprived as an area. So I grew up in a council estate called Braithwaite. And I grew up there with my mum, my dad, and my two younger brothers. So I was the eldest of three. At the age of 6, my dad, due to some issues with my mum, decided that he was going to leave the family home, and he upped and left, and I never saw anything of him again. And then when he left, one of the things he said to me, he said that you're the man of the house now. So I had to kind of look after my two younger brothers and my mum. And my mum hit the drink hard because of the divorce, and she became an alcoholic. She would often be found in pubs after school. I would take my brothers to school and then go to find my mum in a pub to get the house keys, to take my brothers home, put them to bed, feed them. My mum would come home drunk, I'd feed her and put her to bed. And I'm a 6-year-old child at this point. It's interesting that when I was a kid, I never saw anything wrong with that. But actually, growing up now and looking back on my life, there is something seriously wrong with that. I'm sure there's many parents in the room tonight. You would never want your children to be doing that kind of stuff at the age of 6. So that was my kind of everyday, and I had some solace. I used to go to stay at my grandmother's on a Friday night. She was a devout Catholic woman, lovely Welsh accent, very thick Welsh accent. She's from the Valleys, from Connethley. She is, yeah. We've got a fist raise here, yes, the Welsh. So my nan, on a Friday night, I would go and stay with her, and she would be my escape from everyday life. And she was an amazing woman. She used to pray for me, she used to invest in me, she used to buy me books on the human body and dinosaurs and bugs, and she used to stay up late watching TV and stuff like that. She was great, amazing woman. And so my mum used to leave us with random people on weekends, so I'd go to my nan's on Friday, and then on a Saturday I'd come home and mum would go out drinking, and I'd have to look after my brothers and maybe get a babysitter who would be a random family friend or Auntie Jeremy. I'm like, well, you're definitely not my Auntie Jeremy, because it doesn't work as a name, as an example. Try not to use real names, it's hard not to do that. She would often leave us with people who'd say, oh, this is your auntie or your uncle, and I'd be like, it's definitely not my auntie or my uncle, and they would just be family friends, and her friends. And one of the people who used to look after me was one of my cousins. He was a little older than me, and he abused his position for a year of my life. Between the ages of 7 and 8, he sexually abused me. And he only did it with me, nothing to do with my other two younger brothers, but he had something with me, and he was quite aggressive and violent, and that was another major thing for me in my life. I'm going from, an alcoholic mother and a terrible upbringing, no father, to now being abused. And I retreated, I became quite placid. Teachers were obviously concerned there was something not right, and I eventually plucked up the courage to tell my mum. When I told her, she believed me, thank God. I know there's some places where people have been abused and they've shared it, it's not quite been believed, and it's really affected people. But for me, my mum was actually okay. She was like, yeah, okay, let's get the police involved. And we went through a trial period and a court case, and the guy went to prison. And I then went back to school after a bit of time off. My brothers had told everybody what had happened. So when I get back to school, I've now got all these kids beating me up, calling me bum boy and attacking me and all this other stuff. And so I get to secondary school and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I've escaped all this now. I get to secondary school, it's the same. People knew, kids, they talk. And so I was bullied for a majority of my childhood. At that point, that was when I kind of realized that, that I had to, something in me had changed, and it was kind of starting to be more of I have to be able to fight back, and I have to, I started becoming aggressive, I started becoming a bit of a bully myself with people, and it was really all to kind of keep people off my back. I'm like, well, okay, actually, I'm going to start fighting back, and I started, watching wrestling and getting into that, and believing that, oh yeah, I can just pretend that I'm a different character, and I can get away with some of this stuff. And I got to 14, 15, and my mum came home drunk one night, and she goes, okay, you've grown up now, I'm kicking you out, you can go sort yourself out. So I'm homeless now at 15, just before I finished school. And I went around my family, there was no one there who would take me in, my nan was away, so I couldn't go to hers, and I ended up living in a skip for about 8 weeks at the back of Curry's in Keighley. And I'll tell you, to this day, one of the scariest nights of my life was being inside that skip. It's one of these big metal ones that had a lid on it. It's full of cardboard from Curry's and polystyrene and stuff, so it was comfortable and warm and shielded from rain. I'm trying to put a nice spin on living on a skip. But one of the scariest nights of my life was when I was inside that skip and there were these boys outside playing football and they were using the side of the skip as a goal. And every time that ball hit the side, you can imagine being inside this big giant metal container, it just rattled and thundered. And in my heart I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what if they find me? What if they know I'm here? And it's probably the most scared I've ever been in my life, was being inside that skip. Eventually, at 16, the social services at the time could get involved, and housing associations could get involved at 16 because for some reason they couldn't before then, and we're talking about 15 years ago to give you an idea of my age. And I found myself in a homeless hostel in Bradford called Bradford Foyer. It's on Manchester Road, and that was, you think, okay, great, I've got a roof over my head now, but actually hostels are still quite rough places. There were people doing drugs in there were people self-harming, people with mental health issues, there were almost career criminals in there as well, and people, there was one time I found a girl hanging herself outside of a window on a belt because she didn't want to be there and she'd kind of given up hope on her life and she's in this hostel, and it was a really, really rough place. And again, I had to be able to kind of fight to survive. I had to put on this mask of strength and control, and actually, no one wants to mess with me because I'm a big brutish lad and I'll sort you out, because that was just the mentality of the people that I was around. So I've been living this life with this mask and this hurt and this pain. And I got myself into a relationship and in and out of jobs, and eventually left the hostel and got myself into my own place. And during that time, I kind of racked up some debts, and I kind of get a job and think, okay, everything's fine, I've got a job now. And I start living to that wage, and then I'd lose the job, and then, now I have no money, and I have to owe people money, and then I get another job, and it'd just be a mess. And really, I was hiding letters, and I was hiding kind of the fact that I'd lost a job. There was one time I was working at a sandwich shop. First thing in the morning, I would leave work, and I got up before my girlfriend got up, and I left the house and hid in the outhouse until she left, and then went back in to then start looking for work because I didn't want her to know that I lost my job. So that was kind of the life I was living. I was living a lot of lies, and I was dealing with all this stuff, and I didn't know what to do. A couple of years later, I'm about 21, 22 at this time, I come through to Bradford to go get a piercing, come get my tongue pierced. I've got random bits of metal in my face, and we bumped into some old friends who happened to be CAP clients, so they were working with CAP at the time. We didn't know this, but we bumped into them and they invited us to their house for some food and some beers and some games, and so we went back to theirs and we were playing. And I remember it being that evening because they all had pizza, and because I'd had my tongue pierced, my tongue was all swollen, so I couldn't eat the pizza. So I had soup, which was great. I could still drink the beer, which was okay, but I had soup. And we're playing Call of Duty and just getting to know these guys again and catching up. And we did that for a couple of weeks, and then one morning they just said to us, we stayed over, and they were like, oh, do you want to come to church? I was like, yeah, all right. It's fine. I went to a Roman Catholic primary school and a Roman Catholic secondary school, and I could say my nan was a Catholic, and I'd kind of been in and out of church and seen church. And so we rocked up to this church, St. John's on Wakefield Road in Bradford. Really beautiful church. You can see it on the roundabout. It's hard to miss as you're coming in and out of Bradford. And I walk in and I'm thinking, I'm going to come in, there's going to be pews, there's going to be a giant organ, there's going to be a priest at the door who shakes your hand and then you never see him again. But that's it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be hymns and, a bit of pomp and stance and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's just going to be a bit like that. I came in and actually it was quite similar to the setup that we have here. There's chairs out, it's a bit of open space. They had the worship, people were dancing, and there was amazing musicians, and it was all live, and singing songs about love and about Jesus, and I was just like, this is totally different. And in the worship, I found myself crying. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? I'm a hard man. Hard men don't cry. So I'm trying to cover it up, and I'm kind of sniffling away to myself, and we're singing this song about love. And I just felt something in me break. And I just felt something in me just reach out and please, what am I feeling? I need something like this. And as I'm leaving the church, some guy came over to me and he goes, I saw you crying. And I was like, oh no, you didn't. You didn't see me crying. You didn't see me crying. He goes, no, I saw you crying, I've got a word for you. And I was like, okay, it's my first day at church, mate, back off a bit. And he goes, you've just felt love for the first time in your life. He said, that's why you were crying. You've just felt love. And the bells rang out. Just as I was sat down, my wife Beth nudged me. She went, is your phone on silent? I was like, yes it is. I still double checked. And so at this moment I'm thinking, okay, right, I felt love, but what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? I've never really experienced it in my life from people, from family. And I go, well, what even is that? And so I started giving church a go. I started going along on Sundays, and almost every time the worship, I'm pulling back tears, and I'm trying to figure out who Jesus is, and all this stuff about the grand story of the Bible and Jesus dying for us and all this stuff. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm learning, and I'm getting along, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to figure it out. And then me and my girlfriend decided we'd get married. So we walked up to the church and get married, and my nan was there with us, and my nan had she'd been suffering with dementia for a number of years, and she'd kind of forgotten most of the people in her family, and she kind of still remembered who I was. I spent a lot of time with her, and I used to go and care for her sometimes. I think we've got a photo, just the next picture I think is a photo of me and my nan on my wedding day. If we just go to the next one. Here we go, here it comes. No? There we go, okay. So that's my nan there in the wheelchair. And on my wedding day was probably the most my nan had ever been herself, really. Like, I'd met her that morning, and I'm stood at the front, and as you can see, I've got a bit of purple in my hair. You might not be able to see it clearly, but I'd gone with purple because I've got purple in my hair and all this lot. And she goes, Gareth, will you wash out your hair? You look stupid. And I was like, that's my nan. That's the woman I grew up with, that's the cheek that she used to have, and we had an amazing day, and she was there, and I was just like, wow, yeah, my nan's here. We go outside, and what you might be able to see, I've got a bit of a smirk on my face in this picture, because she'd pushed the wheelchair backwards, so the handle had hit me in the groin, and I was doing my best to smile at the same time as not kind of give away the fact I've got a metal rod hitting me in my private parts, and it's kind of just, yeah. You can see the little red bit at the bottom? Yeah? So the funnier thing is, after that picture had been taken, the guy's giving direction. Okay, yeah, can we have the father of the bride or whatever next? She goes, and she wheels forward, she goes, I got you. I was like, wow, cheeky. But anyway, she was there, and it was a great day, and I got to say to her, thank you, I love you for being here, and off she went. She wasn't well, and her liver was failing, a few other different things, she wasn't well. So she left. And then obviously you have the rest of your wedding day, and you have the wedding night, you won't say anything about that, and then you wake up in the morning, you're in the hotel. So I'm in the hotel, and it's one of these weird ones, it's got like a shower that comes at you from all sides, so from the top, the front, and I was like, this is weird, but kind of cool. And my wife walked in, and she goes, Gaz, your phone's ringing, you need to pick up the phone. I was like, it's wedding day, whatever, leave it, it's fine. She goes, no, you really need to pick up the phone, you really need to answer the phone, your brother. I was like, okay, right. So I pick up the phone, my little brother's in tears on the other end of the phone, and he just says, Gaz, Nan's died. So my nan had passed away that night. She'd gone back home, and my mum just found her the next morning asleep in her bed with a smile on her face, and she'd passed away. In that moment, my bottom fell out, my life I was like, everything was going so well. I'm at church, and I started to give God a go and stuff like that, and I just felt angry, and I felt angry at God. I was like, I'm on your team now, things like this aren't supposed to happen. And I got really angry, and I started distancing myself from the church, and then within months, I think literally between 4 and 6 months after that, I found out that my wife had been having an affair with a friend of ours as well. So all this time, I'm just like getting angrier, and my wife threw me out, and I lost my job, and I'm like depressed, I'm living in a box room, and I felt like I just lost everything. I got all this debt, because I'd gone from having 2 full-time wages to being unemployed on benefits in a box room, and all the debt that I'd been kind of paying back over time just suddenly came out, and I'm just there in this room going, where are you? We have those moments, don't we, where we question our faith, and we question God and every part of our life, and that for me was one of those moments. And what saved me in that moment was the fact that somebody actually cared, and somebody came and met with me, and his name was Dave Kendall, and so he works for CAP Australia now, but at the time he was going to the St. John's Church, and he realised I hadn't been there for a couple of months. He'd heard what had happened with the marriage falling apart and stuff, and he came to me and he goes, look guys, I want to help you get yourself back on track. I want to help you deal with your life where you are at the minute, and I want to help you get stuff back on track. So he comes to me and he goes, look, I've got this book, it's called 12 and a Half Steps to Spiritual Health, And I think we can have a go at that and we can read it. It's quite similar to the Keys to Freedom course that you guys are doing now. There's different elements in each step that you cover, and you look at stuff that's going on and you try and pick it apart and question it and try and come to grips with stuff. And one of the bits was forgiveness. So he said to me, he goes, let's make a list of all the people that you've hurt in your life, and we'll go through that and we'll ask them for forgiveness, and then we'll do where you can ask everyone you can write down everything that's happened to you in your life, and then you can tell them that they're forgiven and try and forgive them yourself. Which was a mammoth task in and of itself, because as much as I'd been hurt, I'd been doing a lot of hurting of other people myself, because of just the way that my life was. I wasn't a nice guy back then. And so we went through this list and we're working on it. And so I kind of got through my stuff and I was like, right, okay, let's look at this forgiveness stuff. So I met up with my wife and we started sorting things out, and we got back on track, and I moved back in and everything seemed to be going okay. So I did all that, found my mum, went back to my mum, had some conversations with her, and really kind of had to hash it out a bit, to try and say to her that, Mum, I'm forgiving you for this, and this, and quite clearly my mum wasn't in a place to hear it, because as far as she was concerned, kicking me out was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I just had to tell her that I forgive her. It wasn't about how she received it, it wasn't about what she then came back at. I had to do this for me, not necessarily for her. Even though I wanted her to hear it too, I wanted her to know that I don't harbour any bad feelings towards her. I just wanted her to know that I forgive her. And then we were moving through and I found my dad. So I found my dad, I met my dad, and we've got a photo here of me and my dad together. I think it's the next one. Yeah, forgiveness, and then the next one. Yeah, so that's me and my dad. That was Christmas, not this year gone, but the year before. We're in Witherspoons in Keighley. The photo we took straight after that was him grabbing me by my nose and pulling my head back because he thought it'd be funny. But yeah, I've got a relationship with my dad now, and it's not perfect. We're still kind of working on things, but actually there was a very clear difference between the way that my mum is with me and the way that my dad is with me. My dad actually relishes having time with me, and me and Beth went to go see him on Boxing Day, and we actually got to spend some time with him and his partner, and just it's a totally different atmosphere with him than what it is with my mum. And so me and him have got a relationship now, and again, I just wanted to tell him that I forgive him for not being there. And then he was like, well, can you forgive me for this and for this and for this and for this and for this? And I'm like, Dad, you're forgiven. We don't need to talk about it anymore. It's forgotten. It's in the past. We can't change it. But what we can do is we can change our future together, and we can change the way that we are with each other. And so we're working on that together. And it takes time. You can't expect these things to be fixed overnight. So we've gone through all this stuff, and I'm sat there with Dave, and we're thinking, okay, we've got this one major issue here that we still haven't got to grips with, and in this forgiveness stuff, and it's your abuser. And he goes, what can we do about that? I'm like, well, last I knew, he was in prison. I've had no contact with him. I don't know, no one in the family seems to know where he is or anything. And he goes, well, what's the first thing anyone who can do is you can pray. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool, that makes sense. We've got a hotline to heaven. So yeah, so we prayed. And the prayer was quite a simple one. It was, Jesus, I really need your help. I really need your help with this forgiveness stuff. I can't do it on my own. I don't know where he is. The problem I have is I need to forgive him in my heart because I can't do it to his face. Can you help me with that? Very simple prayer. Very, very simple prayer. And I got myself back into work, so I'm working at CEX. I don't know if anyone knows the CEX stores, computer exchange stores, yeah? Full of dirty moshers that look like me. And giant queues that go all the way to the end. It takes forever to get your DVDs. Yeah? So I'm working in there, and I'd kind of been working on the tills for a bit, and it came in as an underling on a part-time contract. And I was there, and I was just putting in the hours and working. This is literally the day after that prayer, my abuser walked in the store. And he joined the queue. I don't know what you would do in that moment, but I had this massive feeling of, okay, something's going to have to happen here. I've got a couple of choices. The first choice is, I can avoid him, go hide upstairs until he's gone, not deal with it. Second choice, I've been wrestling training for a couple of years by this point. I could jump the counter, make him feel what I felt. I was like, well, that's not going to help anything, I'll lose my job. And then I was like, well, actually, I prayed for this. The option that we all have at any point, the choice that we all have is to act on it. Is to act on forgiveness, is to act on trying to fix those bridges. It's hard, extremely hard, depending on it. But the choice is always there. The choice to deal with it is always there. It's a choice that's always open to us. With God's strength, it's always open to us. So he's in the queue and he's coming down, and I'm thinking, okay, I might not serve him. You know, that'll be all right, won't it? It'll be a roundabout way of getting away with it. So I'm serving away, and eventually comes down, and lo and behold, I had to serve him. Now, I just kind of want to pin that down. I served the man who literally tore my life apart as a child. And I did it with no anger or resentment, a lot of fear, admittedly, a lot of fear. But I took his DVDs off him, I went and found the CDs, put them in the case, brought them to him, took his money, cashed it up, went to give him his change back, and as I gave him his change back, I grabbed his hand. Now, he had a lot of fear in his face too. I don't know what he was thinking at that moment. He's probably thinking, oops, he's got me. But I grabbed his hand, and I looked in his eyes, and I just felt like compassion. And I felt what I feel is God's heart. And I felt, wow. And I looked him in dead in the eyes and I said, I forgive you for what you did. Wow. And I let go. And I felt it just drop off me. Just drop off me. He's like, he had no clue what just happened. He was bewildered. And he left the store. And then I had to go take a break and wash some water on my face and just be like, whoa, man. And I rang Dave and I was like, you will not believe what's just happened. And he's like, oh yeah, go and tell me. I was like, my abuser walked in. He was like, no way. I was like, yeah. And he said, well, what happened? I told him the story and he was just like, mate, you prayed for this. God has clearly brought this about for you to be able to deal with it. And he was in tears with me on the phone, and we're just like, wow, amazing. A couple of months later, there'd been a death in the family, and there was a family funeral, and he was there, my abuser was there. And he'd been kind of outcast, kind of sat up in the corner in the back. And all the rest of the family, because they all knew what had happened. He'd clearly come back into communication with people, because he must have just moved back, I don't know. But he was there, and he was just sat on his own. And I just felt, again, that same heart. And I was just kind of like, I'm going to double down on this. And I went and sat with him, I bought him a beer, and I had a chat with him, and asked him, what's going on in your life? And he was a broken man. He had kids taken off him, he had failed relationships, he had a drug issue, an alcohol issue, in and out of work. Obviously, the being on the sex offenders register limited him in what he could and couldn't do, and he was a broken man. I said to him, I said, mate, some guy came and knocked on my door. I said, he wants to help me with my life, I'm going to help you with yours. And I tried to help him. It didn't go to plan, you know. Like I said, very broken person. I don't have much contact with him now. I've still got him on Facebook, but I don't think it's active. But he ghosted, and I didn't see much of him long after, but I was trying. And I just thought, that's all I can do, is try. But I just think that there's just something massive in there, isn't there? That there is something about forgiveness which we can hold it up and think that it's really hard and difficult and unfair sometimes to forgive people, that we have this sense of justice. But actually, what God's telling us all the time is that we are forgiven, so we can forgive others. That is kingdom, that is God's love through us on this earth. And there's something really, really special about that when you experience it, because that is God's love. Above and beyond all things, He loves us, every single one of us, no matter what we've done. Trying to put ourselves above others, well, I'm not as bad as this person, whatever, we're still forgiven. They're still forgiven. And there's a very special thing in that. And I just think that, you know, we can have some techniques and things that we do about forgiveness. And one of the things is that, you know, there are people in our lives that we may forgive, but they'll actually continue to hurt us. Well, what do we do in that situation? So, to bring it back to my wife that I was with at the time, we got back together, we sorted things out. About a year later, she had a second affair. And I'm like, well, you know, I've forgiven you, but I'm not a doormat. And actually, for me in that moment, ending that relationship was the best thing. I'm not harboring any hate towards her, and I'm not saying, you're a nasty, horrible person. I forgive you for what you did, but this isn't working. This clearly isn't working as a relationship. So I'm not going to have that, So we ended the relationship and we got divorced. There is elements of this in our lives. There may be people who we know we're going to have a conversation with and they're not going to want to hear it, like my mum. She still to this day doesn't want to hear it. She's still bitter about it. She still has this sense of, well, I did what was right and I did what was good because look, you're doing great things. And I'm like, Mum, that's not the point. The point is that if you did that now, you'd have your kids taken off you. It's not right. She doesn't want to hear it. So actually, I've made steps towards actually not having that much of a relationship with my mum because it's not healthy. Whenever I'm sat with her, she wants to bring it up, she wants to talk about it, and I'm just like, this isn't healthy, this isn't great. But the choice is there for me to still forgive her for what she did, but I don't have to have a relationship with her. And I think, again, that's just another really important thing. Forgiveness isn't just saying, I forgive you for what you did, and that then excusing the action or making everything that they did okay. It doesn't, but it does release you from it. And it releases you from the effect that it has on you. The bitterness, the resentment, the fact that can then affect you in your relationships and how you act as a person, and the bitterness that you can project because of what's happened to you, and maybe you can be really hurtful towards a certain group of people because they remind you of whatever. If we just forgive and put it down, it releases us to love again, releases us to build our lives back again and not let that have a hold on us anymore. So I just wanted to talk to you quickly about what's happened since then. So if we just move on to the next slide. So my future, next one. So I don't know if any of you know of Sorted magazine. It's a Christian men's magazine. They ran my story back in December last year, and currently it's the most viewed article on their website, 13,500 views. It's got more than Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's got more than George Clooney. And one of my personal favourites, it's even got more than The Rock, which is good. I'm like, yes, beat The Rock. You would literally destroy me. He is a mammoth of a man. But and obviously my work at CAP has increased. There's a couple of photos there of some news pieces that I've done for ITV, BBC and Sky News, and obviously the documentary was a big part of that. Then if we move on to the next slide, then obviously I had an amazing wedding day in October this last year with Ben. And it's interesting, this whole forgiveness thing, and like I said about how we don't let it affect anything else in our lives when we put it down, that we're able to have quite frank discussions about money and about life together and about past relationships and stuff like that, because we don't let it affect us. And we have things that we're still working on together, we're working through, but what I found is I found an amazing tag team partner who understands it and gets it, and we're stronger together, that she's strong where I'm weak, and I'm strong where she's weak, and we work together as a team, and we've got God at the centre of our relationship, and she's an amazing woman, and I see that together we're going to have a much brighter future than if I was doing this on my own. And you're smiling, but I love you. She's like, don't embarrass me anymore, guys, don't embarrass me anymore. And then if we just move on to the next one as well. And then I realised my dream of being a pro wrestler, which is awesome because I've won championships, I've taught the country, I've body slammed UKIP politicians, that actually happened. I've done some amazing stuff with it, and actually what I found now is that last year I really felt that God was saying to me that there's something more I can do within the realm of wrestling. So it was kind of like, well, actually, you can go around and do wrestling and beat people up and have fun, but actually, what are you doing for me in that? And I really felt God saying, well, you've got an amazing story. You are a storyteller. That's what you do in the ring. You're telling stories of good versus evil, but actually you've got an amazing testimony of what I've done in your life. And so now I'm touring churches and I'm sharing my story. I'm wrestling matches and then sharing my story. And we're seeing people come to know Jesus all the time. And it's an amazing thing. And then onto the next slide. So that's me, that's my story. And hopefully some of the stuff I brought up will give us some moments to be able to discuss some of this stuff together I don't know if the normal format is that we have some discussion points, is that right? And that we kind of talk through some stuff. So, is that okay? Yeah, so am I going to lead that? Is that right? Okay. So I thought we'd do this in 2s and 3s, because I think there's 4 different points I want us to cover, and I want to give us some time to talk about some of this stuff.